Hey, Dana, what's going on?
Uh, Not much. Still a little coughing,
Uh,
but that's okay. Hey,
uh,
we're recording in the AM hours. You were
this
up
is
early this morning, Tom. This
this,
is not like you.
this is strange to me because normally I don't know that like 8 o'clock, like 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock a.m. generally don't exist for me anymore because I'm
Mhm.
unconscious. But yeah, it's a little weird. I mean, even like a couple of the after hours,
Right.
then I'll start to rise from my slumber. But before that, oof, very strange.
Yes. Well, I'm glad you set the alarm clock and got up and joining us on Two Guys Talking Toys.
You said coffee, and I was like, oh yeah, yeah, go for some of that.
Yeah, like an IV drip.
By the time I've passed on, I want the coroner to look at my body and be like, this guy's about I would see a good 10% coffee. That'll
Right.
work.
I always say that I want to have my diet is the long game. So I want to have enough preservatives in my system where I don't have to be embalmed. I'll be just fine.
They'll find us centuries later.
Yeah.
Like, wow, this is amazing.
Just sitting amongst my toys with a smile on my face. Um, So here's the thing. I have something new to show, but I didn't bring
Oh,
it into the room with me. So
oh no.
I'm gonna ask you what you have. And while you're introducing that, I'm gonna run and get the thing.
Absolutely, because I once again have another item that this is a true mystery.
Open it slowly, like a
All right,
tease a little bit,
yeah,
and I'll be back.
I'll do a lead into this. This particular package is interesting because Christmas has happened. We've all gotten our stuff. We've all gotten our mail and whatnot. And I also have gotten my mail, but I've also been straightening things up in the apartment. So things were moved around and shifted around. So lots of stuff fell behind boxes and things were moved, whatever. So this particular package, so this is what I've got right now. Another rando package. I Most stuff that I have on here, I have a general idea of what it might be. This, I have no clue what this is or why I ordered it. So let's take a look at it now. Let's see. This is always It's always kind of fun. I like that there's Christmas happening after Christmas. Because you just never know exactly what it's going to be. So what do I got? What is this?
Let's
Oh,
see.
what? I'm very confused. All right, so I got this is a Star Wars Black figure
The Bad
Wrecker
Batch.
from the Bad Batch, which I am not familiar with, and I don't know why I have this. Why did I order this?
You didn't order?
It's it's a mystery. Why did I order this? Why do I have this figure? He looks neat, and I remember. So I guess there was a new wave of these that were done because he's in different colors. Because I actually have the original version of him because
Mhm.
I was just picking up like any Star Wars character that looked kind of cool, and they're a faction. So like yourself, I generally kind of want an entire faction.
Right?
But this is from like the newer or new-ish wave of Bad Batch, and I do not know why I got this very Batista looking character named Wrecker. Oh, I know why I have this.
Oh,
Okay,
epiphany time. Epiphany time. I like it.
it just hit me. Okay, so this is this is my free shipping figure. This was because I remember this came with an order that included the mole rats from G.I. Joe Classified.
Oh,
And
right.
I remember the site that I ordered them from had like a minimum shipping, a minimum number for free shipping. And I must have been looking through and I was like, what can I get? What can I get that can just put me over? And this guy must have been in like the single digits because I never do that unless it's like a super duper deal and it'll get me to free shipping. Just like people used to do with Amazon, where you had
Right.
to order like $25 or whatever. This is my free shipping character, which means I couldn't have paid more than $10 for him. Hooray!
Nice. There you
I got
go.
I got Batista wearing armor for less than $10.
Good. Nice
I'll
job.
take it. And he got me my mobile rats for free shipping. Oh,
Nice.
did you find what you were looking for?
I did. I mean, I knew where it was. I just
Mhm.
forgot to bring it over. I got finally, I had pre-ordered off Big Bad Toy Store, shameless plug, the Ancient Warrior bears.
Oh, that's right. Oh, those bears look awesome.
They're fantastic. So I have the brown bear
Hmm.
and the polar bear. I don't have the black bear yet because they're not super cheap, but they are cool.
I wonder
And
when those
those
when I
creepy
wonder I wonder
cataract eyes.
I wonder when those went into production versus the Ursa Major Build-A-Figure from Marvel Legends. Because
Right. It was around the same time because we had a
yeah,
discussion about it.
it's a great stand-in. And I really want the panda from that line. But of
That's the
course he's the
chase. Yeah.
yep,
But it's fantastic, well
he looks
articulated.
great.
It's a big figure. It's great.
Yeah.
And it comes with all kinds of stuff like this sort of gladiator-esque belt you could put on.
Oh,
And
that's cool. So you can make him into like more of an actual like anthro character versus just a rampaging bear.
right. Yeah,
That's
he's
very
got all
cool.
kinds. He's got, cuffs to put on. I'm trying to figure out how this has this little hole, but I
Huh.
don't see a peg.
Yeah,
So
there's no place to plug in that pauldron.
so somewhere it gets plugged in there and
Oh,
he wears
yeah,
his
that's kind of
armor.
weird.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a way. He's got lots of extra hands, got
Mhm.
effects for like swiping
Oh, that
claws,
is really cool.
even has kind of gruesome.
Oh, nice. Some blood spatter. Always that
Yeah, it looks like you can
livens up the display.
put that put that on his knuckles.
That is awesome because you can use it as both an after effect of what he has done, or perhaps he's a bloodbender.
Right, it does look like that. So anyway, I'm really glad these figures are going to look great with the Fury Planet, which
Yeah,
I have here.
did we talk about those the panda offerings that Pure Planet is doing?
Yes, the brothers,
Those
but
look
they
really
look
good,
great with the
man.
like
Those do look good.
they look good together. So it's going to be a great, anthropomorphized display of these warrior. And they made the sharks too. If you saw them, like
Oh, that's right.
they're
The
like
monster
gangster
sharks.
sharks. Yeah,
I
they're awesome.
Very few things are more hilarious than the idea of like a shark running around with a Tommy gun.
Right. It's like
That is
Jabberjaw. Jabberjaw went bad.
he's
Jabberjaw's running numbers.
tired of all the disrespect. Oh, it's funny you bring up Crocker because real quick, this is something I got earlier in the week. We talked about it,
Oh,
but I
yeah.
really want to bring him up to show
I
you
want
like
to get
on
these,
the
but
show. So if people are not already aware, I believe we spoke about League of Legends on the video
the
game
video
episode,
game. Yep.
and that got me thinking and looking around online, and I forgot that there was another wave of League of Legends figures that popped up, but I completely forgot that there is a crazy looking, amazing Gator character.
Yeah.
I don't remember his name offhand because I
Well,
saw him and immediately
isn't
ordered
it
him.
Egyptian themed? He should be a crocodile.
Yes, he. Oh yeah, you are correct. Looking around on Amazon, there was a 2-pack of this
Wow,
guy.
they're big.
They are huge. This
So
guy is
those are
easily
the
over
7-inch
7 feet.
scale.
Yeah, easily over 7 inches. So
Nice.
this Anubis character, I don't remember his name offhand, but he was you can buy him by himself. And I was just about to order him, and then in the suggestions section, it showed the two of these. They come in a 2-pack for like $6 more. So everyone run to Amazon, and for
Those are awesome.
$26 gets you these beasts, and he's massive. And the Anubis character is massive and awesome. He fits in perfectly with Thundercats. He fits in perfectly with the AWOC, Animal Warriors of the Kingdom characters. Put him with all your anthros. He's $26, free shipping, gets you both of these beasts. The
Wow.
only downside, the articulation is awesome. The tail is beefy and bendy. The only downside, his jaw does not articulate. You can't open his mouth. And I thought it was a mistake at first. And I was like, there's so much great stuff on this figure. Why can't his mouth open?
Well,
Of all the things to not articulate, it just seems like a weird choice. But overall, again, this figure is great, and they're all on super duper clearance discounts. I think most of them are $10 now, and they're good figures. They're 6-inch figures, like the humanoid characters. The only one that's a little bit higher is I think his name is like Clank Sprocket or something like that. He's a giant gold golem robotic creature, and he looks great, but I think he's like 36, which
yeah,
in the
I've seen
grand
him.
scheme of
He
things,
looks cool.
yeah. So I definitely want to get him too. But man, like buy
26
these
bucks, that's
figures for
practically
20,
free.
and they're like the articulation's great. They can do all kinds of. You can pose them however, and they're fantastic. Go out and get them.
Go get them.
Go get them.
Um, so Tom, today I want to talk about probably one of the most influential genres in toys.
Okay. Ooh.
And that's yes. I may have built that up a little bit.
That's a well.
I
Let's see.
should
Let's
say the teddy bear. No, that's why I showed what I showed. Today we're going to talk about teddy bear. We need to talk about plush toys. So one episode we need to do
we
teddy bears.
do because they're a big thing, and I feel like they've
Yeah,
come back.
yeah, they have. But that's not what I want to talk about today. I wanted to talk about toys from outer space.
Toys from space.
I was hoping you did a pigs in space thing there.
Oh, fantastic! Because that's what a great lead-in. We've gotten pigs from space toys, didn't we? Didn't
yes, absolutely. A dime,
include that?
they did them, and I think Diamond selected them.
Oh, that's fantastic. Oh, okay, yes. So this is a great topic.
Yeah, because it's got a long history from obviously in the 60s, everybody was hung up on space travel, right? As a country, we that was our thing. But earlier than that, we had like in the 30s and 40s, we had those tin toys.
Yeah.
And they had Buck Rogers, and they had that rocket spaceship, the little tin one in the 34, I think it was.
Yeah, it was an interesting changeover from up until that point. Everything was cowboys and
right.
like trains and general cars and like wagons and for girls like family style whatnot, and for boys the Lone Ranger and things like that. And then the shift happened, and Toy Story did a pretty good job of encapsulating that. Even though much more of like a modern thing, but very true to life in that. Yeah, you went from okay, this guy's riding a horse and that's kind of cool, and he's catching the bandits and all that fun stuff, but this guy's going up into the stars. And then like once the great like space race was in full swing, that's what everyone wanted. That's a good that literally takes it to the next level. You're going from we're trapped here we're trapped here on this mud ball, and now we can go elsewhere.
And I love that they took toys into space, right?
Yes.
In 85.
Yes, they took the yo-yo.
You need a yo-yo. How do you yo-yo in space? There's no
gravity. You can't. They just that was what they had to figure out. Like, can I walk the dog in space? And I think a slinky. I think they took a slinky into space.
To put the slinky up the stairs. That's the
yeah. So like if you stretch it and then throw it, like what happens? Is it chaos? If the slinky and the yo-yo come into contact in space, is that just it for that mission? That's why we never heard about like, Apollo 26.
Yeah, and then when we were kids, like obviously the space toys blew up. You had rockets and little spacemen, but it was sort of based in reality, right? So you had like the lunar modules as toys and these sort of outrageous like space. Oh my gosh, I have a little space laser gun in there that makes sounds. It looks just like the space modulator from Marvin Martian.
Oh, that's awesome.
With duck dodgers in the 24th and a half century. But we had rockets and stuff to go into space in the module. But then when we were young, that fantasy element got added to it.
Yeah, I like
that sort of fictional. That's when sci-fi was born, and then and of course, Star Wars blew everything up. We've done episode. Have we done a Star Wars episode? We have.
Yes. Yeah, taking that next step in it's kind of funny how fast that happens. Just like you said, there is the big jump for what are the mechanics of it? Almost same thing with transportation, where you had I've got cars and I've got car models and I've got trucks and truck models, and then you go a little bit further where what if this truck could fly? Or what if this truck could turn into two trucks or whatever? Like, what if this truck turned into a robot?
Right. And I guess we'd be remiss and we'll get in trouble with people if we don't acknowledge that Star Trek was first.
Who could possibly be mad about that?
Yeah, we don't want to start a brawl. We know. I jumped the gun. I went to Star Wars. Star Trek, the original series, all 3 seasons was first. So I guess I'll have to revise my statement that Star Trek gave us that sort of fantasy adventure element.
There was an abrupt halt to all the keyboard clattering that was going on. Where they were about to be like, actually,
yeah.
You staved off a bunch of actuallys, so that is a plus. But it's kind of cool to see the jump from stuff like the Lego set, the giant space shuttle Lego set to what we've mastered. What if we just mastered space travel and now we're doing other things? You have like the Lost in Space.
I have.
Oh, absolutely.
On my surfboard.
Well, speaking of that, my display behind me with Galactus, adding the concept of space really takes your idea. It's kind of like, again, like it's the next level. We've got like Marvel had superheroes.
It's not the next level. It's the final frontier. Let's just kiss a little more butt.
I won't bring up which captain is your preference because that's just going to start a whole other thing. Even though the correct answer is
Captain Crunch.
Anyway,
Captain Crunch,
the best space captain. Oops, all Cosmos, which amazingly has not happened as a serial product.
No.
But in Marvel, you've got your Spider-Man and Daredevil and Avengers, whatever. But once you introduced Silver Surfer to the Fantastic Four, the threat became so much more. It's like, well, it's no longer about like people robbing banks, and it's not like a guy with a special disintegrator ray. Now it's a giant guy from space who sends a smaller guy to check out this planet to see if it's good enough to eat.
And it is.
Yeah, it really it kicks it up a notch.
There's so much sugar on this planet. Like Galactus would be on a high for weeks.
There is a story where I forgot.
Or he'd be immensely obese and have heart trouble because of all the cows.
There is a story in Marvel where Galactus goes after a planet and he wants it so badly because it has whatever specific energy is in it would satiate him for like millennia. And so he's like
it's like a Thanksgiving.
After it. Yeah, he really wants that he wants those meat sweats. He wants those cosmic sweats.
Well, the reason why I kind of jumped forward to Star Wars is because we're talking about toys, right? So Star Trek before Star Wars gave us Mego. We had Mego toys, but my personal history when I was a kid, Mego wasn't really a thing. Like we'd end up with some from a yard sale or whatever, but we didn't seek out Mego.
Yeah.
But then Star Wars came out, and then in 1978 we got a plethora of toy stuff. We had the Black Hole, Star Trek, Buck Rogers, like all of them came out in like 78. Like everybody was like, "Oh man,
yeah, it was
what Star Wars is doing."
It was another space race, but this time with toys.
Yeah, it was. It really was.
Who can we put out in the cosmos? One of the things that I like about Aliens, and not like the generic Aliens, but like the franchise Aliens. I thoroughly enjoyed that toy line when it originally popped up in like the 90s. In that cluster of let's take an extra scary rated R franchise and turn it into kids' toys. But they did such a good job with those figures and those molds. But I remember one of the things that I liked about the movie is that they treated space travel and intergalactic travel as this has already been done. It's the same way that like you get in your car and you go to work.
They really did.
If someone like who's trapped on the Oregon Trail from way back when sees someone driving an SUV, like their mind is blown. Like, what is this witchcraft that you're doing? And that's kind of still how we are here, like in the present with space travel. But I loved that Aliens in that universe treated it as just a bunch of truckers going through delivering cargo. There's some bad stuff going on. Well, we'll send out essentially the exterminators to take out these things. But I like that it was the space travel was secondary to the actual story.
That's what made it so frightening was that it was work a day,
Yeah.
until the aliens showed up. So it was
Yeah.
what I would equate to, you and I going on our morning commute, and suddenly there's a pack of velociraptors running down the LIE, right? That's what made it. It's just that unexpected. Like if they said, "Oh, space travel's fraught with danger, and this could happen,"
Mhm.
and then the danger comes, and you're like, well, they kind of prepared for that. But
Yeah.
when it's work a day, I'm just doing my commute, and then suddenly these xenomorphs are,
And I
laying babies in you.
I like that it can shape like the concept of space, because space is still the unknown.
Mhm.
I like that you could take that and apply it to a property, and then it becomes extra. Clowns are scary. Clowns are evil. But killer clowns from outer space
Yeah.
are like it's a whole other thing. Is you know nothing about these horrendous beings.
And we
Also,
finally gotten figures of those. We finally
yeah,
gotten toys of those.
the NECA figures for those are fantastic, and I
Yeah.
kind of hope that at some point they do that giant, the huge clown Rex that,
Yeah.
that appears at the end. It'd be huge. It'd probably be about the size of Krang's body, the android body, if they ever made it.
I'm
Speaking
down
of
with that.
which, on a slight tangent, did you see pictures of the gigantic version of Krang's body that NECA put on display during one of the
No,
conventions?
I did not. It's
It's
not off topic because Krang is an alien, so you're all right.
This is true from Dimension X. Everything Turtles in Space is a whole other fun, because the last season of the Nicktoons Ninja Turtles, or second to last season of
Right.
it, they were in space, and it was a whole other like set of issues and problems and villains, and it really does kind of like, once
Right.
you've exhausted what you currently have going on here on Earth, you go to space.
Right.
Um,
Which is our plan too. We're going to continue to wreck this planet, and then we're going to go wreck Mars.
Yep, and we will after that happens and we relocate, we will still have a podcast called Two Guys in Space
Right.
talking about toys.
Just floating around.
Not sure if it'll
Um.
be about space toys, but
Right.
we'll
Well,
still
then
be
we'll
toys.
talk about Earth toys. We'll go back to talking about cowboys. The thing when we were kids, I always loved, when because we would dive wholeheartedly into whatever line we were playing with. So if we were playing Star Wars, we built a world down in the basement, and it was a Star Wars world. But eventually, you have kind of all the characters you want.
Yeah.
And then you need addendums. And
Mhm.
that's where those kickoffs, same with G.I. Joe. Like G.I. Joe came out big, and then, Sergeant Rock had a resurgence with the 3 3/4
Yeah.
line, and they made the bad guys that happen to have a Cobra on their thing. And it said right on the packaging, compatible with G.I. Joe, right?
Yep.
So I loved when you're playing Star Wars and, like, say you don't have Luke Skywalker, so you don't have the main character, right? You're like,
Mhm.
well, Han's cool and all, but I'm not the story now. But then
Yeah.
you're like, oh, look, I could buy Buck Rogers and now I have a story, right? So I got a main character now. Yes. And then the black hole, which I've said it on this show, like the black hole, when I watched that, it's a Disney movie, I think, Black Hole.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh.
Scared the bejesus out of me, like Maximilian with those spinning blades. Was like,
Oh, that's right. I've now finally seen this robot. I can see why he would give you nightmares.
yeah, it was frightening.
It's very creepy, and just like, and the lack of face
Right, and he just
is a little
floats. Like
disturbing.
he doesn't even have
Mhm.
feet. He just floats at you. And I don't know how he floats and then spins the blades and doesn't go backwards, but space
he's,
movie physics.
he's like Superman, a
Right.
man from space.
Right.
who
Yeah.
hangs out here and infiltrates our hive.
But those figures were our supplement. And then that got us early on figuring out how to tell stories of this multiverse of characters in
Mhm.
space. And that is where we had the most fun, is
Yeah.
figuring out how these characters work together. And then I think also in 78, we got Battlestar Galactica toys. So
Yeah.
now not only did you have stormtroopers, you had Cylon Raiders with the lightning. Like, who spoke like Soundwave from Transformers, which was cool. But
And
it's
yeah,
just
like,
it just fit together so well. And
yeah,
and like you were saying, because everyone was just from space,
yeah,
and it didn't matter if they didn't have a storyline or they looked different or they were a different size or whatever, because they could just be from a different planet or ecosystem, and
yeah.
that's okay.
I always like the idea that if you really wanted to, so many of the franchises that we enjoy, the Sectors, He-Man, Jason the Wheeled Warriors, Thundercats. They all take place on their own planet because
Right.
it's very easy to like you can establish a story on Earth and that's fine. But once you go into space, you can start ignoring a lot of the things that
Right.
you
Just physical rules.
yeah, like
Physical rules.
you can pick and choose what you do and don't want to have happening. So we just decided for that He-Man that it's swords and sorcery meets fantasy meets some
Right.
technology.
Yeah.
And this is what we have going on. So like your default settings are human-ish because He-Man, no, very few human beings look like He-Man.
I mean, aside from you,
But
no one.
I know. Listen, this is. I'd be more akin to like Clark Kent because I got a slouch and then the glasses go on and I hunch over to make sure no one knows my secret identity. Uh, but like yeah, like you start off with that and then you can just apply whatever earthbound norms are applicable. But generally, yeah, I have a guy whose neck stretches and is mechanical. What of it? Because
Right.
in this world, because we're in space and we don't have these, yeah, like all these limitations, we do whatever we want, which makes for awesome toys because they're not.
Yeah.
Here's a person, here's a society that evolved differently or have different rules or aren't bound by the laws, the same like physical laws that we are.
You know, speaking of mechanic, like, was he born that way, or did he have some horrific surgery done? Is that nanotech? Like, how does that happen?
It's a very good question. Like, was he beheaded and they felt bad?
Right. It's frightening to think about.
No one else had. Oh wait, no. Extendar kind of has the same power, but
Mm.
it's all his limbs as opposed to just his neck. And then in the 2000X series, they like
Yeah, he was
hyperdrived it.
around.
You could go and create mazes and whatnot with it.
Yeah. But we digress. So you know what? We haven't had any really influential, like in regard to space toys, they keep going back. Like
Yeah,
we keep
Star
going
Wars,
back Star Wars, we
Star
keep
Wars and
going
Star
back
Trek
to
are
Aliens, we keep
yeah.
going back to Predator, we
Mm-hmm.
keep like, and even those were space characters, Predator coming to Earth. Like
Yeah.
we did see in Predators that they had their own little recreational planet. But
Yeah.
but we just keep going back. Like I'm trying to think of something since, I mean, we had some
It's
great amalgam movies that we talked about, like should have toys, like
mhm.
Krull and others with that
Yeah.
fantasy sci-fi mix. But you know,
And
even now when I look at Snyder's Rebel Moon and all of
mhm.
these attempts to recreate, literally recreate Star Wars in that case, they just hasn't been there.
Yeah, there's a lot of the fallback seems to be on the evergreen franchises because it's so easy to just they're still cranking out Star Wars figures. I think was it Super 7 that was doing Star Trek. I think they picked them up, but I
Yes.
believe they may have canceled them. They recently had a big bout of properties that they wound up canceling
Right.
or
We just had some Star
getting rid of
Trek
the license.
figures. I didn't
Hmm.
know who made it. I picked up Khan. They did.
Hmm.
They started with the Wrath of Khan. They didn't
Yeah.
do the original ones, and I don't know why. Well, I do know why, because Wrath of Khan was cool. But
But yeah, there hasn't. You're right. There hasn't been I guess like a brand new concept that takes place in space that is something that everyone has kind of latched onto. Again,
right,
like I said, I think kind of circle back to well, when there's another Alien movie that's coming out later this year. The next Dune movie is coming out, and even though
right,
Dune has kind of been relaunched, it's still based on an older property that
right.
has been brought back.
Oh my
Um,
God, that first movie, that original, was rough to get through.
it's the reason I have not watched the current ones. I can't do
Yeah,
it.
I agree with you. I agree with you. It's even,
And I'm a
but
big fan of Batista in movies, but I couldn't
right.
do it.
Um, you know, people have tried to launch like space toy lines
Mm-hmm.
without the support of a movie or a comic, like those Fox Toys exclusive I got, but they were
Mm-hmm.
also just harkening back, like that the exclusive at that JerseyCon was clearly Boba Fett inspired. Um
Well,
and now the Four Horsemen are doing their
yeah. So
alien
what do you think of
thing.
Cosmic Legions? Because I again like getting back to the whole the next level or the next jump because Mythic Legions is great
Yeah,
and has
yeah,
a lot of really cool stuff, but the jump from that to Cosmic it's a whole separate thing
Right.
now.
And then
And
if they just followed that same
mhm,
history that we were just talking about in like a
mhm,
microcosm,
yeah.
I think they're cool figures. I hope it takes off. I don't think it's taking off the way they wanted it to though, but
Mhm.
I haven't been following it, in a
Yeah, I think it might be off to. I mean, I don't. I have no idea what their numbers are, what their sales are.
right, because it's such a different aesthetic for
Yeah,
the
they
Mythic
and
Legions
they're
toys. Yeah.
starting to go up on the secondary market, but I think in a few years it's going to probably follow the same aftermarket cycle as Mythic Legions. Like there's if you got it on the ground floor, and I remember when a lot of like their earlier stuff was coming out, and you could get it, and then after X amount of time stuff would get clearance. I remember picking up stuff for fairly cheap, but once they kept going and everyone else realized how cool it was, the secondary market on some of those characters is
Oh, it blew
just
up.
ridiculous. And I wouldn't be surprised if Cosmic Legions follows a similar pattern. Like right now, they're cranking out the starter lines.
Mhm.
Actually, like 5 years from now, I wouldn't be surprised if it's just absurd trying to get some of those characters.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. Um, but yeah, we haven't had any like even in the movies, we haven't had any like they've been like space dramas,
Mm-hmm.
like Gravity and all there's been a couple of space
Yeah.
movies, but they've been like space drama. They're not space adventure as we know it,
Mm-hmm.
and they're certainly not spawning action adventure toy lines.
I'm a little
Um,
I'm a little surprised that Marvel has let Guardians of the Galaxy end. Like yeah, we got the three
right.
movies, and I enjoyed those. And I'm hit or miss with the toy line because I really prefer the comic
The
based
comic, right, right.
versions of those characters. So that Entertainment Earth exclusive pack is probably going to be like my definitive Guardians of the Galaxy
Yeah.
display cluster until they do something better. But I am a little surprised that they kind of let that go. I mean, there is the cartoon that came out a couple years ago,
Mhm.
but this seemed like a series that you could absolutely keep going. It
Yeah,
might
because it
be.
had that kind of Star Trek feel.
Mhm.
It was a great amalgam of Star Wars, Star Trek because
Yeah.
it had that that little bit of comedy, kind of snarky, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
But it and the relatability of the characters. Like no one
Yeah,
relates to Spock, but
yeah,
um but you could relate to any number of Star Wars characters. But it
and
still had that like every episode was a new adventure kind
yeah,
of thing.
and I wouldn't expect Chris Pratt to come back for every single series, but in that also comes your new toy possibilities. So if you
Yeah.
get someone else to play Star Lord, you're releasing your new movie line, and there's Guardians interact with thousands of characters.
Right.
Their roster is constantly changing unless you go back to the original versions. And even then, they picked up new members pretty
Mhm.
fairly often.
Yeah,
Uh,
they did.
and then you just keep cranking out new toy lines or new versions
Right.
of said figure, or so and so is gone now, and this is like the new version of Groot. This is
Yeah.
Rocket's buddy. I think that
The
that could be.
Go ahead.
No, I think that could be something that's again like almost an evergreen property that you just
I agree with you
continually
because
mine.
it's always been a changing roster.
Hmm.
I've always thought the most fun thing about any space toy line were the villains because
Hmm.
they always kept that tradition of like, Buck Rogers, where it's a humanoid or even an earthling in the case of Buck Rogers
Yeah.
and Star-Lord. Like
Hmm.
Star-Lord has a very Anthony Buck Rogers storyline to
Yes.
him. Um, was because the bad guys were so far out. Like he was a robot or a space creature from a water planet, or you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like it was always and the bad guy always seemed much more powerful than the good guy
Hmm.
because the good guy was an earthling, right?
Yeah.
So I know that's like I know you're like a robot bad guy, like you're the man in black, right? You're always rooting for the bad guys. So what are I always thought that was the best thing about the space things were the bad guys. But what's your favorite thing about the space toy lines?
Kind of the same thing. Like I love the how how terrible can you get? Um, I love Transformers, and one day we will do a Transformers episode. I can't believe that somehow that's avoided. We've managed to
Right.
avoid doing that. But space
Well, you're
offers.
calling it next week. You're calling it next week. So
uh, I like that space offers no limitations on what you can or
right.
cannot do. So you if you can dream it, you can make it. One of the best long-standing villains in the Transformers lore is Unicron, who is just a gigantic planet that transforms into an even bigger robot that then eats planets. And you couldn't have that unless it was an ever-spanning space story. Yeah, I like seeing how crazy you can get. Was it The Fifth Element? I loved for that very reason because the villain was maybe he was like Unicron's cousin from another dimension who showed up and wanted. What did he want to? I don't remember if he wanted to devour the planet or absorb it or like just strip it of life.
I don't remember. I have to watch that movie again.
He caused the black goo to appear. Oh, it was so good. But I love that you can just expand. Even getting back to Marvel and toy lines that we should have gotten by now. The Brood from X-Men.
Yes.
Even
obviously aliens bite off.
We all know they're the aliens, but they're also super duper cool. And there is that Wolverine 2-pack that's coming out where he's been taken over by the Brood from that one story. He looks great. I'll be getting him. But I want
those 50th anniversary Wolverine sets are pretty cool.
Yes, Hasbro.
Not to segue too much.
Hasbro Troop Builder. Include us either like a 2-pack or just a large version of the Brood, and I'm buying them. Also, make your build. Don't make the Brood your Build-A-Figure because they did that when Toy Biz had it. Oh, no, it may have been right after Hasbro got it back. And there's a Brood Mother Build-A-Figure. Stop! Don't make Troop Builders a Build-A-Figure. They didn't learn that lesson, and it was weird. And then DC didn't learn that lesson, and that was also weird. So we actually are coming down to the wire. So it's question time.
Okay.
If you could make your own space story, what would it be? I know that's just a quick passing question.
Ooh,
at the buzzer. What's your space story? What's your toy line?
Toyline would have lots of vehicles. I'll tell you that right now. Lots of vehicles, lots of crazy looking aliens. The storyline, I think I would have to stay classic, with the humanoid versus the aliens and robot versus the aliens and robots. But I would want my villain, the main boss, to be sort of like Master Mold-esque, where it's this big, maybe not a planet devourer because that trope is getting old, but he's just burping out like these powerful guys that I have to fight before we get to him. You know what I mean? Almost like Galactus creates those heralds and every one of them looks cool and looks different. So obviously I'm biting off of a lot of things and not original, but
everyone does.
I would want that only because it'd be fun to design all those different aliens.
Good answer. I like that. I like that idea. I mean,
what about you?
So I'm going to.
I bet you already have a plan because you're a writer and an artist.
Got me. So my idea, I've kind of already done it. It was an idea called Feral Ignition, and the general premise was that there was a group of different types of law enforcement officials, like a beat cop, an undercover agent, warden, and they are in charge of a transport ship filled with criminals, and they're taking them from one prison to another. And halfway through their transport, their ship goes down. They land on an alien planet. It looks like just a giant metropolis. It's completely empty. The prisoners escape. So there's 100 some odd prisoners that have escaped onto this planet. And this group of law officials have to round them back up, get them back on the ship, and take them to where they need to take them. The twist is, being on this planet, for reasons that have not been explained yet, you are able to turn into a gigantic transformable robot. So everyone that lands there, they run out, and the villains have all. You can be just a regular flesh and bone character, but you can also turn into essentially an anthropomorphic transformer. That's the other thing. This is completely anthropomorphic. The main characters are dogs and cats and birds and mandrills and all that fun stuff. So it's it's combining all the things that I love. It's combining different elements from different series that I've enjoyed. Again, if you ever want to take a look at it, it's called Feral Ignition. It's poking around online. It's on the Duck Web Comics. It's on my DeviantArt page. But that's what I got. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching the show. Thank you for listening. We are at the end. If you've enjoyed what you have heard and or seen, please give us a like, subscribe to the channel. It helps with the algorithm. You can get a hold of us on Twitter. We are Two Guys Talking Toys. That is the number 2, no G after the talking. Same thing for our Gmail. Once again, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoy. Take care, everybody.